What is going on, everybody? Happy it's Wednesday. My God, it just feels like the week is both going fast and taking forever. Where do we start? It's a Whiplash kind of day. This is the kind of day that, you get with Trump. I was saying earlier, because I do all my shows, and I do a lot of shows for radio. I do one in the morning, then I do a midday one, and then I do one in the afternoon. And how fast things change from morning to middays to afternoons. It's with Trump, it's crazy. I was telling somebody today with Joe Biden in the 4 years he was kind of pretending to run the country, maybe the show would change drastically one of those days. Every 6 weeks to 8 weeks. And most of the time it had nothing to do with anything Joe Biden did. It had all to do with something that happened. With Donald Trump, I feel like every day something new is happening, and the shows do not resemble one another as you go on throughout the day. And today was one of those days. So obviously today it was Tariff Palooza. Everybody's, oh my God, it's tariffs. And if you see the headline, it's always been about China. This is always about China. This is not about a lot of the other stuff when you see things like Singapore. And oh my God, Singapore, what do they come out and say? Why are they tariffing us? I thought we were friends. Or the UK or Europe. And this is nothing to do with them. This is, you want to be the big dog. We want to be the big dog. We are the big dog. We haven't acted like it. We act like the dog that really doesn't care very much. We like to consume. You guys want to be the big dog. You're not our friends. China's never been our friends. They're not going to be our friends. They're not friends with anybody. They're not even friends with people that in theory you would think they're friends with. I mean, let's be real. Putin, they would drop him in a heartbeat if he became a boat anchor around Xi's neck. They don't care. They do not care. China's goal is dominance. And this is warfare in a very subtle and different way. And it's economic. And they have used it, and they've played the game immensely well. And everybody else has allowed them to, hoping somewhere they'd get this altruistic change of heart and become, oh, you know what, we should be friends. They're not our friends. They're not. I'm not talking about the Chinese people. We always have to preface that. No, I'm talking about the government itself. They're not our friends. They don't want to be our friends. They want to dominate the globe. They're like the mob. They go out and hand money out to countries globally with no strings attached. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But one day I may call upon you and you can't deny me. It's kind of the way that plays itself out. We like to be this, oh, hey, guess what? Here's $50 million from USAID. We're going to ask you, though, if you could use that money for DEI. And, hey, don't hang people from, cranes because they're gay. Could you do that for us? That'd be swell. We try to, do that. Like, that's soft power. Their power is, here's a whole bunch of money. We're going to build you infrastructure. We're going to build you a hospital. We're going to build you all these things. We don't want anything. Not yet. They have used the might of the tariffs. They've used the might economically that through our consumption, Europe and a bunch of other people, to grow their power. Their tentacles are everywhere. They do not want to be our friends. They don't. They want to be dominant. They need what we have, but they don't want to be or have the beliefs, the system that we have. They need capitalism as an ends to a means to an end, but they don't want any of the stuff that comes with the freedoms. So last night, and I played this several times today, and Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, was on CNN. Because today, of course, 125%. It's great. It's great. He said this.
104%
and he's
tariffs in China are not enough. I'm advocating 400%. I do business in China. They don't play by the rules. They've been in the WTO for decades. They have never abided by any of the rules they agreed to when they came in for decades. They cheat, they steal IP. I can't litigate in their courts. They take product, technology, they steal it, they manufacture it, and sell it back here. Never has an administration.
400% tariffs? What would that look like?
I want Xi on an airplane to Washington to level the playing field. This is not about tariffs anymore. Nobody has taken on China yet, not the Europeans, no administration for decades. As someone who actually does business there, I've had enough. I speak for millions of Americans who have IP that have been stolen by the Chinese. I have nothing against the Chinese people. They brought great literacy, art, and tech to the world. The government cheats and steals, and finally, an administration, you may not like Trump, you may not like his style or his rhetoric, finally, an administration that puts up and says enough. 400% tariffs tomorrow morning. He'll tell you why. Xi can only stay the supreme leader if people are employed. If we wipe out any business there, because we are still 39% of all consumables on Earth and 25% of the world's GDP, America is the #1 economy on Earth with all the cards. We will not have that forever. It's time to squeeze Chinese heads into the wall now.
Well, hold on a second,
tariffs.
Well, I hear you, but hold on. If we're talking about people, the average consumer, not necessarily the head honchos of businesses all across the globe, can they withstand the pressure of that sort of tax on the goods?
It's short-lived. There will be
but what's your timeline compared to, you don't know the average American's timeline, what they can actually survive. There's people right now who can't survive
400% tomorrow morning, cheese on an airplane to Washington to cut a deal.
Now, I may not agree with the 400%, and he's going to be on an airplane tomorrow. I think China's willing to go to the mat. But here's the thing. They've got issues. Unemployment rate, especially among young men, is tremendous. The youth itself. When you take away people's freedoms, and for a lot of people who've never had freedoms, but a lot of these young people, they've had some freedom comparatively to their grandparents and some of their parents, because China realized we can't be the Soviet Union. It's not going to work. We need to, bring in stuff. We need to have some sort of economy. So they let the pressure out and gave people a certain amount of freedoms, mobility through employment and some entrepreneurship and et cetera, et cetera. You take away that, you crush that. The pressure on Xi is tremendous. And he becomes desperate. Because, so wait a minute. If you're sitting there and you're young, and we all know when the idle hands, kids, you have no freedom of thought, no freedom to say anything. Now you're taking away the money aspect of it. So the freedom of mobility, money, all of that, it becomes that authoritarianism that we thought of China way back in the day under Mao and many others. It's gone from the metropolitan, oh my God, it's beautiful, look at Beijing, incredible, to back to Tiananmen Square kind of feel. Well, then that would be an issue for sure. But I think Xi's willing to go to the mat for this for a while. But he's right. This is not about our allies. It's not about the UK or Europe. It's not about Australia. It is about China. And Trump's taking them on. Do I agree with a lot of the tariffs? No, because I think a lot of the tariffs are baloney. I think a lot of the tariffs are, hey, we're going to put tariffs on everybody because we kind of want to see what, are you with us? Or are you with them? Well, you're going to be with us, right? You're going to enjoy all the stuff. You want access to our market, or you're going to be with them. Are we pals? Are we doing this? Or are you going to be with them? So if you want to be with us, fantastic. We want you to be with us. We want them to be with us. But we don't want them to take everything that they think they can take, dominate everything, buying their way into the hearts and minds of people throughout Africa and everywhere else, only to go, hey, once we get in here, you guys are going to have to give some stuff, and we're going to take some stuff, and then control minerals and all of the things that many of us absolutely depend upon, including the medicine side of things. And if we didn't learn that from what went on during COVID, we have lost the plot. Earlier today, Trump hanging out with a bunch of NASCAR. I think it was some of the IndyCar people. But he was, out there like, look at the cars. They're great cars. And somebody goes, hey, what the hell's going on? Like today, why this? You guys put these things on, and with ours, they're going.
Just a few hours later, there was a pause put in on the tariffs. Can you walk us through your thinking about why you decided to put a 90-day pause?
Well, I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, you know. They were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid, unlike these champions. Because we have a big job to do. No other president would have done what I did. No other president. I know the presidents. They wouldn't have done it. And it had to be done. What was happening to us on trade, not only with, you know, if you look at it, not only with China, but China was by far the biggest abuser in history, and others also. But somebody had to do it. They had to stop because it was not sustainable. Last year, China made $1 trillion off trade with the United States. That's not right. And now I've reversed it. It's for a short period of time, but we made $2 billion. We're making now $2 billion a day. And somebody had to do it. Roger actually said it. Charles Schwab was here a little while ago, one of the great financial people, and he said he's been waiting for 40 years for somebody to do what I did over the last month. And if you didn't do it, you wouldn't have a country. It wouldn't be sustainable. So I'm honored to have done it. And, you know, look, nothing's over yet, but we have a tremendous amount of spirit from other countries, including China. China wants to make a deal. They just don't know how quite to go about it.
Yeah, because the deal they want to make is how do we get out of this and continue to do what we've done in the past? And Trump understands that. This is a long-term thing. It's not a short-term thing when it comes to China. This is going to be on and off again. I have a feeling but for the rest of the globe, no. I mean, we're doing some things that I'm not a fan of. I'm a big free trade guy. We also, for those of you guys don't know, there's two kinds of trades. Consumer goods. You know, we buy cheap crap. We do. The shit comes in like, oh, check it out. Cool. Socks, $3. Then there's the other kind of trade, which we dominate in. That's the service trade. Software, banking, you know, all the finance stuff, insurance. I mean, we can go on and on. We dominate in that. We have surpluses pretty much everywhere, including China. But it's the good side. And it's what they do with that money that has got people understanding that we need to deal with this. And we've allowed this to get too big. And it can't just be us. The rest of the world can't bitch, whine, and moan about the power of China and then not stand up to China when the opportunity is there. But who has the balls? I'll criticize Trump when he needs to be criticized. And there's times he does, because that's what you do. You hold people accountable. Most people won't do that anymore. But this right here with China, I mean, he shows he means business. In the stock market, Main Street, you know, I saw Bassett today say, yeah, this is not about Wall Street. It's about Main Street. And yeah, some of that's true. The manufacturing side of stuff, when I hear that, they're going to bring back, we're not bringing back manufacturing the way that people think. It's just not, because we're also still a consumer-based nation. We like cheaper goods. And a lot of the stuff that we buy is semi-disposable, you know, T-shirts, certain things like it's the stuff that matters that we need to produce here, right? As my buddy Jim says, we don't need to make keyboards, right? We don't. But we do need to make stuff that matters, and that includes the technology and that stuff. And that's why this is important. And we need to have this battle. And it sucks. Because all of us at some point in time, for the most part, have lived close to the edge. And the expense of certain things, whether you're a business owner or just a consumer who's living on the edge, it can suck. Being, who do I rob? Well, I can't rob Peter, Paul, or Mary because they're dead. So it's a battle, and it sucks. But Trump's taking it on, and he has a chance to do it partially because he's not running again. It's the weird thing about being the president is when you're termed out, you can do stuff where you don't care about the consequences politically. Maybe unpopular even amongst your party, but politically, you don't care, right? Like, it's unpopular there. It's not, but if it's good for the country, fantastic. Because I'm not running again. Despite what Bannon and everybody else says. And that's a weird thing. But he also has to walk a fine line of, you've got Republicans who are running, who you will need. Otherwise, your last 2 years, if you lose the House and the Senate, it'll go be a nightmare. And you can't have that. So it's walking that fine line, but also being able to stand up and do this. The question is not who blinks first between Trump and us and China, but the Republicans and Trump, and the worry that he may lose out because of the loss of the Senate and the House if things go sideways. Sunny Hostin, speaking of voting, she's on The View. Talking about voter ID, which of course is,
don't have cars, don't have driver's licenses. So it's sort of a vestige of, I think, post-slavery laws where black people had to prove their right to vote. And oftentimes they couldn't vote because they couldn't pass some crazy test or they didn't have the appropriate ID. It also affects women that are married. Maybe your passport reflects something that's different on your birth certificate or on your driver's license. So really the bottom line is voter suppression. And I agree with him 100%. It's a brilliant notion that less voter ID laws allows more people to vote. And most democracies do it that way. We're the only ones that really don't do it that way.
Right.
Really, we're the only ones. She is useless. And I think everybody recognizes that. Several people lately, was it Mistal, came out and said, we should have less. We should have no voter ID. We should have none of that stuff. Less laws create less issues when you have less laws. If you just get to do anything you want without any repercussion, that's the dumbest thing in the world. That is the dumbest thing in the world. And this whole thought of and let's be real, we're not talking about when they talk about voter ID, it always goes back to Black America can't get an ID. That is the biggest bunch of horse shit on the planet. That is so racist. It is incredible. Well, I guess she just can't get it because she's not smart enough to get a voter ID. She can't get an ID. What state doesn't require ID as an adult? What? You have to have ID. It's fascinating. It is fascinating the insanity of which people on the left think they look at Black America and say, you guys are victims always. You're never going to be anything but victims. That's horseshit. And you know it. By the way, here's some countries, right, that have voter ID. Germany, of course they do, because it's a thing. France, Italy, Sweden, Norway, Spain, Belgium. We can go on and on there. Oh, but what about, those are European countries. India, Canada, Australia, Mexico, Brazil. Again, so many more. Stop making them a victim because they're Americans. They all have IDs, and that does a disservice and is racist. Like you cannot believe. And nobody calls it out. And they should. And they should. And finally tonight, Chuck Todd. Now that the movement away from the Biden administration is completely or decoupled from that era, didn't exist. So many people out there, Stephanopoulos, several others that worked inside the White House. Well, I'm waiting for the big books, the people that were really in the inner circle, come out with let me tell you a story scenario about what it was like during the Biden administration, especially the last 2 years. But Chuck Todd was on with Piers Morgan trying to semi-defend the media and their uselessness over covering that story. You know the story where
I
he
sit here and I'll defend a little bit
time
of this in that I would argue the reason people were able to come to their own conclusion on Joe Biden is because of the media coverage. Look, we were subtle. He's using the back staircase. He's not using the front staircase. Hey, he's not doing any interviews. So there was this reluctance to draw the conclusion to say, is he not doing this? And that I agree with. That was held back a lot. I would argue it was also held back a lot back in the late 80s when it was clear Ronald Reagan wasn't necessarily running everything in the White House. Whether you want to call it decorum, whatever you want to call it, look, there were plenty of members of the media. I remember David Ignatius in the Washington Post, plenty of individual people questioning whether he should run. I certainly questioned whether he should run. You didn't understand, there were some of that. But I understand the argument about the collective on that front. The only thing I can chalk it up to is this, whatever you want to call it, this fear that some members of the media had sometimes that they would be perceived as helping Trump if they somehow diminished Biden, right? That it was some sort of zero-sum game. And I think this has been the fundamental mistake that many members of the traditional press have done.
You failed. You failed. And by the way, they're like, well, it was subtle the way we brought it to you. It was subtle. It wasn't subtle. Anybody who's ever been around anybody in history, like who's a bit older, understands when things start to slow down a bit. Most people have had a family member with Alzheimer's or dementia who've struggled with their mental acuity. This was not something that the media was like, well, we just did it subtly, but then you guys finally came to your conclusion. It wasn't hard. We were the ones telling you there's something wrong with him. You guys aren't covering it. And the thing that made me, I think, frustrated and sad for all the talk of we're the media, it's about liberty and freedom, is nobody wanted to be that person that said, screw it, I'm going to do it. I don't give a shit. I don't care if the other parts of the media come and attack me. I'm going to go hard at this because this is a real story. The only people that did that usually were people on the right, and the ones who did do it in the media tiptoed around it until it was impossible. And once he just flat out, for lack of a better term, crap the bed on that debate night, then it was like, oh, finally we can be honest. Nobody had the thought of even a thought selfish wise of saying to themselves, I'm going to be the next. I mean, this is it. I'll be the next one. I mean, this is my opportunity to be the big journalist to break a story, even if it was just for the selfish reasons of hoping to be the next, the Bernstein or somebody. You're going to go out and do it. No, nobody did. And yes, many people out there covered it up. Many people out there hid everything or ignored it and made it right-wing talking points, when in reality, this was an America problem. And yes, Reagan struggled. You should have learned from that back in the day. It's not about the number by the age. Because you look at Bernie. Bernie's still out there. Bernie does his thing. Hey, it's me, Bernie. I never question whether or not Bernie's all there. I don't. He is. I don't like his politics. But I know Bernie's there. I know I've known people in the past in my life as they get a little bit older. I try to tell everybody I'm 46, but I'm 54, who are even younger, who've had issues, and you could see it, and it sucks, and it's horrible. This was a swing and a miss by the media. When you wonder why people don't trust the media, when you wonder why people don't trust what the quote-unquote establishment says, because you decided not to do what you have proclaimed to be your job, which was to cover things honestly. And you failed. You failed. I don't care that you advocate for things. I don't care about it. But you should at least, when you know something's wrong, it's about a country. It's about, well, Trump is going to drive us into the ditch. Trump's going to do this. Overreaction, living in a world of emotions. You failed. Could have been the next Woodward, and then chose to do nothing about it. You could have done something that could have set you up forever, even if it was a selfish way of saying, screw it, I don't give a rat's ass. I don't care. Even though I can't stand Trump, you might think to yourself, if you're a journalist, but you know what? I got to get this out there, and this would be great. Nobody did anything. And the ones that did were called right-wing nut jobs. You failed. You failed. It is what it is. We've moved on. Trump's here. And how'd you guys like the tariffs today? Tariff Palooza. That didn't last as long as we thought, but it wasn't going to. This is about China. The coming days, weeks, it's going to be Whiplash. So hold on to your hats and glasses, kids. This here could be the wildest ride in the wilderness. Reach out to us across all of my social media, at Chad Benson Show. X, if you're not there watching it, check out the YouTube. If you are there, like and subscribe. Check out our Facebook, and of course, ChadBensonShow.com. You can go there. You can stream our show live if we're not in your market, 6 to 9 a.m. Pacific, 9 to noon on the East Coast, live radio across about 100 stations nationwide. You guys have a blessed rest of your night. We'll be back here tomorrow, give or take. I might play a little pickleball tomorrow. You never know. I got to get, I got to start playing some pickleball. I got a big tournament coming up. So